12 on August the 10th, 2024, and in about 5 minutes' time, the 24-25 Championship season will kick off for Watford here at the New Den. As always, we'll be there through the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and the downs. Whatever happens, we'll be there trying our lives as a Watford fan. Welcome to season 15 of From the Rookery End. After exactly 100 minutes of breathless Championship football here at the Den, the season really is up and running. It's up and running in probably the most unexpected way. A topsy-turvy game. Watford thought they'd blown it. We haven't. We won it. Millwall 2, Watford 3.
Those are the sounds of full-time yesterday. And this morning, we're going to pick apart that game in the first post-match podcast of this season. My name is John, and we're at that point of the season. That point of the season where we're searching, scrabbling, scraping around for some idea of what this season might look like and who might be our saviour. It's not often we find it after one game, but we can do our best. Who's we today? That we includes Mike Parkin.
Good day to you all. You say we're scrabbling around for some indication as to what the season might be like. I think we know already. It's going to be carnage, judging on yesterday.
I'm not against that whatsoever. And also joining us is Mr. Adam Drury.
Morning, John.
Mike, it was our first game away at Millwall. The new proper start, let's say, to the Tom Cleverley era as Watford's head coach. Your feelings coming away from the Den yesterday?
Can I just start, John, by saying it was quite an emotional beginning to the day. Obviously, the Millwall keeper Sarkic tragically died earlier in the summer, and it was an incredibly poignant moment, actually. His family were there by the side of the pitch. Both clubs brought out beautiful wreaths and laid those in the centre circle. Huge round of applause, as you'd expect. And it was incredible. I was surprised, actually, with how emotional I found it. And I found myself thinking about how all the hand-wringing and we complain about this, we complain about that, we worry about this, we worry about that. And ultimately, what it comes down to is life is short and you have to enjoy every moment and wring every possible opportunity out of every moment you have. And I think we tend to look at footballers as being different, as being on a pedestal, and we treat them differently in that regard. And I think it was, for a whole number of reasons, it was quite an emotional start to the day. And it caught me, I don't mind admitting, it caught me by surprise a little bit. But well done to Millwall and, of course, the Watford fans, as you'd expect, 100% from our following, hugely respectful. And in the top tier, there was a banner that had been made by some of the Watford fans as a little tribute, and that went down incredibly well. And it's one of these moments when you talk about Millwall and all the stuff that's gone on before. It's not the same as it was there. But again, the football family, the football fraternity coming together just to pay tribute. And it kind of serves to remind you, A, why football can be great, and B, on a larger macro level, how important it is just to keep things in perspective. So an emotional start to the day, very, very poignant.
And it's always a time of year where we remember Jimmy Davis. It's always this time of year that he remembers, and it felt very similar at Millwall. Yeah. But the game itself, how did you leave? Yeah, on Arlo's birthday. It was Arlo's 13th birthday. He's not cute anymore, everybody.
He was ready for this one, certainly. There's nowhere else he was going to be on his birthday. But look, it was absolutely tremendous to be back. Sold out away end, sea of colour. It's always great these summer away days when everyone's got the kit on. It's just that sea of yellow, a few specks of black with that smart new away kit as well. And after a summer of just not really being sure where we're at and more discontent than excitement, I think really has been the prevailing mood. Just to be back in the ground and to see the flash of green, the pitch, I still get that excitement when I see it. It was a real buzz to be back. And for Championship football to kick off again was a real thrill. I love it. For all the ups and downs, for all the sort of machinations and all the concerns and whatever, once the football kicks off, it is brilliant. There's nowhere I'd rather be. And it was probably, as you'd expect, an emotionally charged atmosphere. Millwall coming off the back of a superb end to the season. I think it was either they won 5 in a row or certainly won 5 in a row at home under Neil Harris. So we knew it was going to be tough. I think Millwall came out the quickest. Watford grew into it. And that kind of summed up, set the tone for the match, a bit cat and mouse. Watford had 10, Millwall had 10, Watford had 10, Millwall had 10. Neither team really dominated, but coming away at the end of it, look, what a buzz. A 90th minute winner. I mean, the game went on for 100 minutes, but for them to equalise, then for Watford to get the winner, there's nothing like it. A sunny August day, packed away end, you win it right at the death after thinking you'd thrown it away. If you could bottle that feeling and sell it, you'd be a millionaire. What a buzz!
And Adam, from what you saw on the pitch, I don't think we can call it clev ball. I don't want to be that person to try and name something like this.
Pinball, you could call it, I reckon. Not about clev ball.
What did you think about the overall performance from Watford, Adam?
Mike said at the start he's got an idea of how this season's going to look. I left thinking I've got absolutely no idea how this season's going to look because it was the good, the bad and the ugly kind of all combined together at times.
Bit like us three.
No further comment. But I thought we saw some really good things and some effort to try and play the way that Cleverley's been talking about, particularly in the first half. I actually missed kickoff. I can't remember what I was doing, looking around, looking at my phone, looked up, and they already had a throw level with our penalty area, and I'm thinking, oh, God, we're under.
But that's a new rule, Adam. We don't start football matches with a kick now. We start with a throw on. So you didn't.
But there was an initial storm, and then we actually came through that quite well and started to dominate in the first half. And there was a period actually where I was thinking, from their point of view, they're at home to a team that's tipped to struggle, and they're not getting a kick. And that period ended with us scoring the first goal. I mean, the theme of the game was how littered it was with our mistakes just when it looked like we were taking control, particularly at 2-0. It's something we've seen quite a lot over the last few years, that kind of failing to really ram a game home when we've got it in our hands. I think both goals you can point to bad individual mistakes, and we have to acknowledge really how much luck we had throughout the game that they didn't take more of their chances from, I think, generally self-inflicted mistakes rather than them having the quality to carve us open, which I suppose is a better way round at the moment. I'd rather be in a situation where we can improve and cut that stuff out than we were just being cut open. But they did miss 2 or 3 other presentable chances on top of their goals. But I do think also we were the team trying to play the football, and I'd come away thinking that I'm more encouraged as a Watford fan than I would be as a Millwall fan watching the two teams' performances, even though we gave up too much really for how much of the ball and how dominant we tried to be.
Yeah, I think we'll look at we'll dissect the game a little bit more, but I think as a piece, finishing up there, Adam, I think that's right. I think Watford tried to play the better football. I think the pattern of play and what they were trying to do was more evident. I think there was Esse down the right for Millwall, and the right to start with looked like he might cause a problem, but we actually worked quite hard to shut him down and keep him out of the game. And it was obviously he was someone they wanted to get into the game, and we just didn't let that happen really after he looked like he might be a threat. But I think if you look at the overall piece, Watford could have gone 3-0 up at one point, didn't they? They had that break on and just missed, didn't play the right ball and didn't play it in time. And 3-0, I was going to say we'd be home and hose. We all know we wouldn't. It would have been a very different ending to the game. And if you look at the overall thing, like you say, we had to ride an early it wasn't a torrent of pressure, but Millwall were on top. Watford took it. You say you weren't ready for kick-off, Adam. It felt like Watford weren't really. There were lots of misplaced passes and poor touches. But overall, I thought it was a really gutsy performance, because in the face of that, when things weren't going well, they did really, really dig in. And each time Millwall scored, they responded pretty well. And if you look at the overall performance, I'm just really infused by the way they stuck at it. Obviously, we can't ignore the mistakes, but what defines a football match is how you respond to those mistakes. And the guys who were making them never went missing. And if anything, they doubled their efforts to sort of make up for it. And I thought it was a real strong. There was pride there and effort there, and we've talked about Tom Clevin. It looks like they're playing for him, playing the way they want him to, possibly playing without a little bit of fear, because they make a mistake and then reset and go again. So by no means can you avoid the mistakes. They were a theme of the afternoon, as you rightly say, Adam. But I think from an overall piece, just really infused about how they stuck at it and really, really went for it, and ultimately got their just rewards at the end. It was, if Pep Guardiola watched it, I don't think he'd sleep for a week. I don't care about that. I care about how those boys sort of react and roll their sleeves up and how they win the game, and they managed to find a way to win it. And overall, probably deserved to. I think in the passages of play and the way they played and the way they reacted. I was thrilled with it.
I think what you're saying there, Mike, and what I like is, having heard Tom talk on BBC Two Counties this week and seeing this post-match and stuff, they are playing in his mould. And I always think that's a good thing when a team is sort of trying to living what the manager is saying. Those two things join up. You don't always see that. It felt a bit like last year with Valerian, the way he spoke. We were always trying to aim. We were never quite there. And Tom does speak as if we're not quite there yet. And we'll talk about positions in particular, but they are playing in his head, let's say, in the way that his head is wanting them to play. And that's going to get us a lot further down the line, where a team of not amazing players, not the best players, if they play as a team, you get a lot more out of them.
He was honest afterwards as well, which I thought was encouraging. He didn't throw them under the bus in any shape or form, but he did say, ultimately, we made it much harder than it should have been. That's what I was saying in the group chat. John at half-time said, look, we're doing okay. We are managing to force the tempo at times. We are looking dangerous, but we're our own worst enemy on occasions. And I think Tom mentioned that in his post-match comments, which I think, again, is encouraging. He's sort of... just recognising that it's by no means perfect, but also acknowledging that they got the job done. So, it's obvious what they need to work on. It's really clear.
You could definitely see the patterns in the way that we played. What Tom's been talking about all summer, how he wants the team to look, it was evident. So I think, just building on John's point about we reflected what the manager wants. The ball's coming into midfield. Even those two in midfield, particularly Sissoko, maybe not always the most technical or comfortable in possession, but they were trying to do the right things. They were always brave, popping it into those two players behind the striker, the wing-backs connecting with those two players, with Kayembe and Shakfatadze. Like those patterns were there, which, was definitely really encouraging. And as I say, I'd much rather that was happening and we were making mistakes and you can improve on that, than it was just a bit of a mess and we didn't know what we were trying to do. So certainly encouraging in that sense.
Let's go through the team. And normally we do this time of the season. We sort of go from the back to the front. But I'm not going to do that. So we're going to start in the middle. It is the most interesting, I suppose. And we've always talked, when Watford have been at their best is when our midfield is at its best. And last year we sort of finished there with Kone, with Livermore and with Kayembe sort of as the core of that midfield. It's not changed 100%, but it's still Kayembe. We have Moussa Sissoko back, and also Tom Dedibashiri, who's sort of playing a role at the moment, which we'll speak to him a bit later on. What do you think, Adam, of that midfield three and how the roles they played in it? And I know there were other players in the midfield, but just those core middle three.
Sissoko was probably one of the standouts, certainly in the first half. Someone I've had concerns about the signing. Sort of going back to a player who left us 2 years ago, who I didn't think was particularly impressive as that Premier League season went on, but actually looked quite physically imposing and dominant during the game, particularly, I would say, before the latter stages where he started to look a little bit more tired, but got around the pitch a lot, used his physicality, kind of what you'd hope to see from him. Tom Dele-Bashiru was a funny one because he does so much well, and you can see that there's a player there waiting to emerge, but also just too many kind of hairy, scrappy moments where the pass is slightly misdirected or the weight of the pass isn't quite right. And I wonder with him whether it's almost a mentality shift now where he has to accept that he's the dominant midfielder in the team. He's the man who we're building it around, rather than being the kind of the third member of a midfield, which already has two more senior players next to him. I think that might be a bit of a shift for him to really take it on. But there were still moments in the game where he showed his class, particularly in the build up to the winner, where he kind of scurried inside and got his shot off, which deflected over to Rajovic. So I like him a lot, and I feel like he's still a little bit of a project in terms of becoming the dominant player in the team. But those two dovetailed nicely.
Is that not just about him, getting game time? I mean, he did play a lot last year, part of it at right back, but he just needs that run, doesn't he, to sort of, it feels like, to get him to what we think he can be, which is not going to be necessarily a Premier League quality player, but it's a better quality player than he shows on a regular basis.
As I say, it's the first time in his career where he's signed a new deal. Tom's talked about him being the main man. Just think it's the first time now for him to really step up a gear and take it on. And we've seen other young players at Watford who kind of get to that point and can't take it on the final step. So hopefully he's going to be given the time and guidance to become the main man in there. And I think that's definitely the aim.
I echo a lot of what Adam says, which doesn't necessarily make for a good podcast, but I think a lot of the mistakes did come from that midfield trio, didn't they? Some misplaced passes or taking too long on the ball. But I think that stems from doing what they've been asked to do. And I was saying yesterday, they're just taking too long. And Arlo quite rightly made the point was that they're taking a beat to draw the man and then play the ball. So there's a fine line, there's a balance to be struck there. And I thought, Tom Dele started slowly. There were a couple of times where he misplaced a pass, or his first touch was heavy very, very early in the game. But as Adam said, I think he really grew into it and showed what a player he can be. I think he's going to be really, really important for us this season. He's big, he's strong, he's brave, he has got a good touch. He understands the defensive duties as well as the importance of getting forward. I think what we were so tragically bad at last year was the transition from defence to attack. And that seems to be, there's definitely a mind shift, a change in approach into how to do that. They want to do it more quickly than they were. They're looking to move through. And Tom Dele is a big part of that, sort of really looking to drive on. And he's a bit of a cliche, but despite those errors, he never, ever went missing. Like Adam said, utterly instrumental in the 90th minute, getting forward, taking a chance, making sure he got there, getting a shot off, and we win the game. And that's the difference. Someone who's willing to push on and to put themselves in and amongst it, take a chance with the shot, which again last year we just weren't doing. We weren't winning the lottery because we hardly ever bought a ticket. So I really liked that Tom Dele-Bashiru performance yesterday. By far and away, not the finished article, but loads to be enthused about. I think Adam's touched on Moussa Sissoko and what he's going to be useful for this year, and that's his physical dominance. I think he can just basically, if other teams have got little Premier League loanees in that midfield, it just push them over. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Having a dominant, big, experienced centre midfielder. And although he made a few mistakes as well, obviously the second goal was a sloppy pass from Moussa. But you could often see him after a torrid period look into the left, sort of calm down, don't worry, put it there, we can take a breath, and just sort of dictating the pace a little bit and showing that experience. And I guess showing why he's been chosen as captain as well, just to keep everything calm. So I thought Adam's right as well. He did look like he ran out of steam a little bit towards the end of the season, towards the end of the game, as you'd probably expect. So I think potentially going to have to manage that a little bit. And Ed Okayembe I think he's someone who's really grown in the hearts of Watford fans over the last couple of seasons. Certainly last year he was a decent performer. And I think he's going to be important for us again this year. I think he tried to to get forward as well. He just works. He's incredibly industrious. He always pops up in that final third in and around, and he's there and he's making stuff happen. I don't think it was his most productive game yesterday, but I think as a 3, there's hope there. At least they can do the dirty stuff. They can knit together quite well to make it difficult. They did get sprung a couple of times when they were going to win the ball back, and Millwall were able to find a little bit of space. But that's the way it's going to go. We were able to do the same as well. So we're going to have to manage them, I think, as a 3. But I think there's a nice combination available to us in there in terms of a bit of guile, a bit of experience, people wanting to prove themselves, and there's some hope there. I mean, there isn't what else is there to come in instead of those 3 when 1 or maybe 2 of them aren't available. If there's suspension or injury, then perhaps we might have a bit of an issue, but we don't need to worry about that at the moment. We're talking about the Millwall game, and I thought overall they did pretty well.
Let's take a step back to another 3 gentlemen, because Tom's been playing 3 at the back or 5 at the back, whatever you want to look at it, and however you want to count your numbers. So you're out in the middle, Pollock on the left, and Porteous on the right. Pollock for me I want him to be my favourite player from a point of view of just he loves football, he loves playing it, he just felt the most industrious of them all, but not quite in a crazy Porteous way. Yeah, he got his head injury, which made it so much easier to follow the game, to know who he was, and which one was him in terms of, following the game from a distance. But as a 3, again, I think the goals you wouldn't necessarily say came from that not working. It was mistakes further up the pitch. I think Porteous maybe for the second one was caught out a little bit. But do you feel, Adam, I mean, with the players that we have, or the way that Tom's picking, that you're happy for us to stick with this 3 men at the back, the individuals as well as the system?
Yeah, I think so. I think they probably maybe lack. Well, we've got someone obviously who's injured who would be playing in Wesley Hoot, who's the kind of more the leader back there, and maybe the more kind of class, calm act. And it feels a bit at times, particularly with Porteous and Pollock, that, as you kind of touched on, it can get a bit haywire and a little bit panicked. But I thought actually in terms of defending the box and doing that side of the game, they all did really well yesterday. I think Matty Pollock was probably the standout. I guess the bandage on his head kind of resembled his performance in the sense that he, got in the way of everything, stuck his head on everything, but actually maybe a slightly different side to his game as well in terms of the kind of more calm, measured approach. I guess this was always the kind of game that suits him. Balls in the channel, getting his head on bits and pieces, and he did really, really well. I think where we might struggle with those 3 is more kind of nimble, speedier attackers. I think we've seen in pre-season, we saw it against Brentford at times last week. When they get turned, they're not always the quickest to get the other way and react. But yesterday, when crosses were coming in and they were called upon to, with the ball in front of them, I thought they did well. Obviously, we're lacking a left foot in there, which I think makes a difference in terms of the way we're trying to play as well. But it was a game that suited them. I think with Pollock particularly, he's someone we're kind of still wondering and waiting to see whether he is a long-term championship defender. It feels like he's almost making absolutely everything of himself to perform at this level. Hopefully this is a period where now he can kind of relax into it and just look like he belongs at this level rather than kind of having to prove himself with every single appearance he gets.
I really liked his performance yesterday. I thought Matty Pollock was perfect for the occasion. I think, as you say, you open up the dictionary and look up championship centre-back. You get in 2080, when dictionaries are all videos and stuff, you'll see Matty Pollock's highlight reel from yesterday. He just, like you say, Adam, he got in the way of absolutely everything, and also managed the game quite well, I thought. So a couple of times on the left-hand side when there were throw-ins, there's a ball available for him to take the throw-in, but he waited for the ball from 80 yards away to come back, and just a little bit of know-how and a little bit of nous that I think sometimes we've been lacking. Some of those little having word with the ref, not over the top, just a little, did you see this elbow? Did you see that? Because it was quite a physical game. I mean, John, you mentioned being able to tell who was who because there was a bandage. Well, it felt like by the end, half the team were bandaged up. I think they're going to run out. They're going to have to run out to the Hornet shop to get another replica shirt for Sierralta if he got any more blood on his top. They went through all the spare tops for him. But yeah, I think Matty Pollock played really well. He really caught the eye for me yesterday. I thought he was excellent. Sierralta, obviously, he fluffed the clearance. He's probably a bit unlucky for Millwall's first. And Porto is Porto. It does, like Adam says, tend to get a little bit panicked, but they do centre-backy things really, really well. I think Adam makes a great point about when players have got the ball down and are in and around the penalty box, because in that first half, there's that extraordinary passage of play. I think Watford were 1-0 up at the time, and it ended up with Saville, I think it was, hitting the post. They had a penalty shout, and the guy was sort of had the ball and was driving into round about the penalty box, and he thought that Porteous should have him from the body shape, and it's like, right, you'll get across and you'll get, but he managed to wriggle clear, and there was the penalty shout. They got the shot off that hit the post, and then we managed to smother it off the line. So everything about that back three was sort of encapsulated there. They'll give you everything, but they'll also often have to work hard to get back to stop a goal after they've perhaps not been as good as you'd hope. So I think ball on the ground and players running at them, especially close to goal, could be problematic. But if you put balls in the box, they're going to get heads on it. They're going to do the tough, hard stuff, as you'd expect from Championship centre backs. Let's be clear. You're not going to be. There's a very, very clear job you're going to have to do, and I think they did it well. But yeah, keep an eye on that when you've got more intricate, tricky strikers coming at you. But overall, I think Millwall probably had, if you look at the stats, Millwall probably had the most shots and the most opportunities. But largely speaking, the defenders made sure that they were not really huge efforts. I mean, it worth looking at in the second half early on. Was it Bradshaw had that header? Was it Bradshaw with the header that came back off the post, and it felt like that's a little bit too easy. So we were just all waiting for the net to bulge in it, and it bounced back off the post, and he should have scored, but it was far too easy for him to do it. So I think they'll be in with the defensive coordinators this morning reviewing the tape. They'll have worked out what was good, what wasn't so good, but as a back three of, and I don't mean this to be disparaging or dismissive, but as a back three of meat and potatoes centre backs, in arguably the most meat and potatoes of Championship games, they largely did a good job. We do miss Wesley Hurt, of course, because his distribution as well, apart from anything else, the way we talked about how Tom Delibashiru was driving on and how we transitioned from front to back, or back to front, sorry. So many times last year, out was a lovely ball from Wesley Hurt, and there's no one really back there who could do that. And I think they were searching for that a little bit early on, and just weren't able to find it because, well, you don't find ones like that, do you, in centre backs very, very often. So a big miss there, and obviously there's a question mark over his future, perhaps. And obviously you don't wish injury on anyone. But perhaps him being out of the shop window for a couple of weeks might help us, and I'm sure Tom will be working very hard to try and persuade him to stay.
Yeah, he turned meat and potatoes into a Sunday roast.
Very good.
I saw he was there yesterday as well. The club put a video out of him high-fiving them all as they came off, so he's at least very involved and engaged, which is good news.
From that back three, if it's a back five, whatever, talk about those two wide boys. Wide boys. I don't think they're that thuggish. But
wide boys aren't thuggish, John. They're just, a little bit wee, a little bit
okay,
weird.
Let's call them wide boys then. Thuggish. So the wide boys, even though they're a lot less wide than me, how do they settle for you, Mike? There's Ngakia, I don't know, felt a little isolated. It wasn't, that how you really want the midfield to work with wing backs, I suppose. And, Andrews is still growing. He's still developing as a player. Ngakia certainly felt like he was going up and down a little bit more. His heat map was a bit more spread out. We don't have a huge amount of options. We have options, but there's not, we're waiting for that player to come back, or that player is definitely going to be better. There's no clear sort of answers for the for changes or a first choice. So they could easily be the players that start as wide boys for quite a while.
Yeah, well, I think Larucci's been brought in to be that player, hasn't he? He's not fit at the moment. He was on the bench yesterday, which potentially was a bit of a surprise. Obviously, wasn't risked, which I think is sensible. So I think long term, he's been brought in to fill that role, and you have to feel a little bit sorry for Jeremy Ngakia being played out of position and being asked to do a lot of work. So a wing back it's a common thing now in football, but it's a tough job. You're expected to be able to defend really well, and you're expected to be able to bomb on and attack well as well. I like Jeremy Ngakia. He obviously has his limitations. I don't think he's ever going to go on and play Champions League football, but I think he is a competent, certainly Championship level defender. I think the way he plays the game is he's hard to get past. He defends like earnestly and honestly and diligently. Yesterday, I felt he was, I think isolated is a good word, John. He felt like he was a little bit betwixt and between. He wasn't quite sure where he was supposed to be. I mentioned the Millwall right winger SA, who at one stage I thought this is going to be a tough afternoon for Jeremy, but as is his wont, he stuck to his guns and did a good job. I think he grew into the game quite well, but I did feel, I don't know, it felt a little bit like if you've got a better team with better right attacking options, he would have been in for a bit of a torrid afternoon. It felt like to me yesterday. It didn't feel like he quite clicked or was ever comfortable. He never looked dominant. He never looked like he was 100% just happy and content. He caught my eye as one being that could be a problem area for us, but he stuck at it well and was brought off with 25 minutes to go as it turned out, and Ken came on, which I think was a masterstroke, because Jeremy Ngakia did what he had to do for the majority of the game, then brought Ken Sema on. You know what you're going to get from Ken. The defenders know what you're going to get from Ken, but seemingly no bugger can ever stop him. He still manages to get to the byline and get a cross in. He's absolutely superb. So I like the way that story down the left-hand side played out, and credit to Jeremy Ngakia for playing out of position, sticking with it when he cleared. For me, anyway, he clearly didn't look comfortable.
Adam Andrews on the other side for you. Still developing?
Yeah, I think probably, similar issues to what we've talked about before with him, where it felt like quite a few times he had a lot of space to work with down the right, and he'd get to the edge of the box and almost get stuck. I think at the moment he's someone we know his pace is his best attribute. And actually that little bit of trickery to go past a man or to create when he got the ball kind of on the corner of the area wasn't quite there. Whereas actually I thought Ngakia at times did show a willingness and ability to actually go past the man, get a ball across. There was one in the first half where he came in on his right foot and got a shot off, which was deflected. So I think Andrews, we're looking for that final part of his game. And at the moment, it feels a little bit too often like he'll get to that point and then it's kind of hoping he can just slam a ball across the box, pick a pass. It doesn't always come off. So yeah, he worked really hard, really diligently, absolutely rapid, as we know, but there is still a lot of work to do. I think on Mike's point as well, with Ngakia on the left, that's an interesting kind of tactical conundrum when he's coming up against a fullback and a winger who are outnumbering him. And obviously he's not got another man on his side to help. And I think there was one point towards the end of the first half where Cleverly got a message out to Shaq Fatadze to say, you've actually got to get back in there and help him now. And so whether the kind of the 10s in front shuffle back and help the wing back when they're being outnumbered might be something to keep an eye on this season, because there was definitely a period where he was being outnumbered and we were in trouble at the end of that first half. And I think there was probably a move just to say, okay, let's get through to half time, everybody back into shape and help out your mate. But so that might be an interesting one to watch. But yeah, I actually think when the left-footed wing-back came on in Sema, the balance was really nice. And I wonder whether in time it's actually going to be a battle between Ngakia and Andrews to start on the right. And I think Ngakia might be edging that battle at the moment, personally. But there's good that hopefully there'll be, well, we know with Ngakia's injury record, unfortunately, there will be plenty of minutes to go around. But it's quite impressive how often he comes back from injury and is kind of ready to go and picks it up straight away. So I like him. I thought he did really well and was actually the standout of the two wing backs for me.
Yeah, I think a battle between Ngakia and Ryan Andrews at right back is nice for us as supporters. I think that's a decent. They both offer slightly different things. I think the thing that for me Ryan Andrews needs to work on is he still drifts. He can switch off. I think when you're out there, sometimes there can be a lot going on and you're not involved for a while. And I think he does switch off. We saw that last year, and I think that's obviously something he's going to have to work on. But his pace is such a massive attribute in a division where often there's not much between teams, as we saw yesterday. I think Watford were the better team. They created more. They had the bit of quality when it counted. But when there's such fine margins between whether you win that particular ball or whether you win that free kick or whether you're able to whatever, a couple of times Ryan Andrews' pace obviously surprised his opponent, and he was able to either nip the ball back at a crucial moment or get into space and start an attacking move. So I think that is a huge benefit and something that I think will, is always going to go in his favour in terms of the manager and in his thinking. But I think those two, they both offer pretty solid right back options. I think if you could meld the two together, you'd have a really good right back. But I think if you want solidity in your defence, you'd probably go Ngakia, which, don't know, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Adam, you're absolutely right in terms of that, getting that message out to protecting Jeremy, because that did happen, and that's nice to know that that's being. I mean, it's pretty obvious, I guess. If I can pick up on it, then you'd hope that Tom Cleverley can pick up on it too. But that in-game management and plugging holes where they were appearing is quite encouraging to see. I've just woken up, actually. Well, I haven't just woken up, but I've just sort of been fiddling with my leg while I've been talking, and realised I've got a massive long gash down the side of my shin, which that's how you rate away days, isn't it? It's how big is the sort of massive cut on the front of your shin. But yes. Interesting, really interesting, and but there's a lot on. It is Larouci, isn't it? I'm saying that right. There's a lot on his shoulders. I think speaking to a Sheffield United friend of mine who's saying defensively problematic from what they saw, but going forward really good fun. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens with him and how he performs, because as we've just alluded to there, without explicitly saying it, there's a lot riding on him, because it's going to be presumably him as first choice left back. And then you've got James Morris, who I think is, again, he's obviously a limited footballer, but I think he's absolutely got a career at championship level. I think he's one that sticks to his job incredibly well, is diligent, works hard, and is a solid defender. So he gets a lot of criticism, but if he's the backup to Larouci, and then you've got Ngakia and Andrews on the right fighting it out, it's probably not a set of options that there's going to be a title challenging team. But for where we're at and how we've been feeling, I think that that feels okay to me, really.
In terms of attack, or let's say not just the forwards there, 3 goals. We only scored 3 or more goals in 6 games last year. So it's a good thing that we've got 1 this year. One came from a corner. He meant that. We know after that goal, he tried at the very last minute away at Ipswich last year. Kembe just having a go. He had a go and he got his goal. That's what I'm going with. What a set play. What a direct free kick from Chat for Tatsay. It was sort of too up front, with him being a bit more left. Literally couldn't tell you anything that Bayo did. In fact, I think I looked up some of his stats, and the only one that had any sort of mark in it was he did 1 attacking dribble. Tom has been very, very critical. In 2 interviews I've seen with him, he talks about this side being, or where we're at the moment, is getting us through to the end of the transfer window with a squad that is stable. A way of playing that is stable. And he's been very critical of, no, we definitely need more up front. And so what we've got at the moment, again, Bio went missing. Rajovic, though, Adam, coming on, have we found, particularly with, he played well last year. His goals a lot late came last year where balls being whipped in from Yasser Asprilla. Do we feel the super sub role of Rajovic is probably going to be his thing this year, if we can get someone of better quality up front to be the main man?
Yeah, I think that is going to be an interesting something to watch between now and the end of the transfer window, because you'd imagine that Bio's profile is more what Tom's looking for in a starting striker, obviously with more of a goal threat ideally, but someone a little bit quicker who can press, who can run behind. Therefore, if we bring that player in, do we want effectively a budget version of that in Bio sitting on the bench, or actually a point of difference in Rajovic who comes on and does pick up bits and pieces in the box? I think that might be the way we end up playing it. It's easy to kind of look into things now that he scored the winner, but I did think he moved quite well when he came on, better than we saw last season. He was actually, he was making life difficult for defenders. There was one long ball, I think, after he'd scored, when it might have been before, when it was bouncing and he got in front of the centre back and held it up and made life awkward. Maybe coming on for 15, 20 minutes, we know that physically he struggles. He can come on for short bursts and leave everything out there in that time. Maybe that's a role that could suit him. But I was really pleased for him as well, because it does feel like, being at games, he's one of the most, this is a sort of a sad thing to say, I suppose, but one of the most patronised Watford players seen, where every single touch is every decent first touch is okay, that's better than normal for quite basic things, really. But it's not a coincidence that he does keep popping up with these goals. And I actually thought there were some improvements in his game. And Tom talked afterwards about how he's a player who works so hard on the training pitch, leaves everything out there every single day. And I think he's always going to get something back from the supporters, even though we know his shortcomings, when you can see that desperation and that work ethic in the way he plays. So, yeah, really pleased for him to get that goal. Must have been quite a difficult summer for him, because he'll know how people perceive him. He probably knows how the manager perceives him. I think that super sub role could be interesting, and could be the way that actually we play it beyond the end of this transfer window.
I think he's unlucky with the supporters, because last year we were so pathetic up front, and when he was brought in as the number 9, and you sort of equate that sort of blunt striking options with your first choice number 9, who he was brought in to be. He obviously found it difficult in the Championship last year with the physicality. He didn't seem to make the most of his attributes, or was seemingly unable to. He's obviously worked on that over the summer, because I thought, as Adam said yesterday, he was massively noticeable. He was exactly what you'd expect from a number 9 of that physicality and that stature yesterday. His elbows were sharp. He was getting up. He was making it very, very difficult. If he wasn't going to win the ball, he was making sure he was the right side to make sure that the defender couldn't have an easy job of it. And of course, the most important thing of all, he did what he did do last year as well. His greatest hits, his greatest goals compilation isn't exactly going to be one that's going to have everyone purring. But I reckon, I'll tell you who'd like it, Gary Lineker. Goal scorers is right place, right time. He won't care if he scores off his backside, off his nose, off his shin when he wasn't even looking. If his goal goes down in the scorebook, he'll be happy. That's what number 9s should be. And he has this happy knack of being in the right place at the right time. And much more astute commentators of the game, players who played the game, said last year about him, look, he's obviously rough, he's raw, he's not the finished article, but he's got that inherent unteachable skill for a striker, which he knows where to be at the right time. And lo and behold, it wasn't a flowing move yesterday. The ball took a deflection, popped up. He was able to get himself into the right sort of body shape and managed to time his jump to head a deflected goal, beat the keeper from pretty close, at his near post. He managed to win the header, get enough power on it and score. And again, right place, right time. And I just thought it was incredibly noticeable. The ground he covered yesterday when he came on. Yeah, you've got 15 minutes left, 20 minutes left. You can expel that energy and you can buzz around a little bit. It's a different dynamic when you come on as a sub at that stage. But I thought it was really noticeable yesterday how much of an impact Rajovic had, and just getting off the ground and timing his jumps and knowing how to deal with these Championship defenders and indeed midfielders. He was working hard. He looked like the sort of player that if you're watching as a Millwall fan, you'd expect him to be a certain type of player by looking at his frame. You've got that yesterday. I don't think we necessarily got it as often as we did, as we hoped last season. So I'm really hopeful he can Rajovic super sub. It works for me. But I think we've covered those two. We're going to go back to that sort of played a number 10 role now. And he yesterday proved how absolutely integral he's going to be to Watford Football Club this season, and any sort of hope we've got of being a cohesive team and scoring goals. We've been shorn of Ismail Kone and Yasser Asprilla. We didn't create much with them in the midfield and them in the final third last year. So a lot of us were scratching our heads as to where that attacking impetus is going to come from. And I think this guy, fresh off a impressive debut appearance for his country at the Euros in the summer, I thought Georgi Chakvetadze yesterday was head and shoulders the best player on the pitch. He was a cut above absolutely everyone. I thought it was a storming performance, capped off with an absolutely magnificent free kick. I didn't quite realise, when you're behind the goal, it's hard to judge the distance. Didn't quite realise how far out it was, but it was an absolute inch perfect strike. Keeper had no chance, unlike with the corner, which he should have dealt with. This was a devilish free kick from Georgi Chakvetadze, and I think it sort of just put the icing on what was a really tasty Georgian cake yesterday.
Yeah, just on the free kick, it was so good that it dipped quite low into the net. You know, usually it's quite difficult to get those ones up and down. It got so much dip on it that it almost hit the bottom corner rather than the top, which I hadn't realised live. It was absolutely a better strike watching it back than I realised at the game. I think he, as Mike says, was head and shoulders our best player, the best player on the pitch. And I actually get the impression he's going to be quite talismanic for us this season. You know, I think back to a period 15 years ago or so when we had players like Tommy Smith and Danny Graham, who were the best players in our team by a mile and were the figureheads for us to perform at this level, sometimes surrounded by relative mediocrity or lots of young players or whatever. They were the stars. And we're not there yet because he has to deliver, but I do look at him and think he could be the guy we are turning to and leaning on quite a lot this season. And I do think this system and the way we're playing, it's been built for him, really, hasn't it? To play in that little inside left pocket. And even if he has a bad game, even if he doesn't deliver the way he delivered yesterday, he's always going to be a threat playing in that position, getting in those spaces, the way he runs with the ball. I think I think Tom said a week or so ago, you don't want to talk about him too much because there's still 3 weeks left of the transfer window, and teams must be watching him and thinking, if he can deliver like that in this Watford team, what could he do for us? Particularly after the Euros raised his profile as well. But someone we cannot afford to sell in the next 2 or 3 weeks, particularly with the money it looks like we've already earned through sales this summer. Yeah, he was absolutely outstanding, and I don't see why he can't have an outstanding season for us. We've
got to keep him. We absolutely have to keep him.
Yeah, and great when he ran to Tom. He ran over, first person to celebrate with. If he's got that connection with him, I mean, they must sit there going, well, you know what it's like to send a midfielder. Oh, I'd love to do that. You know, they must be connection because of how they both play football. But the fact that he does have that connection with him, and he knows he's going to get the opportunity this year to really push on. You never know. He might be thinking, if I get not just one good game away at Millwall, if I can show a whole season of being the man at Watford, and not just he might get a better move from Watford than he would if he jumped on this Euros, a couple of games he played on worldwide television. But we still need that striker.
I don't think it's overstating it to say we haven't really had a player like him for a long time. And we've talked about Kone going, we've talked about Asprilla going. I think even those guys, as supremely talented as they they were and will hopefully go on to have stellar careers. The way he moves with the ball, the way he goes forward with the ball, something feels like it's going to happen every time. And it opens, even if it opens up space. And we saw it yesterday, whether it's going to be result in him having a shot. I thought there's going to be a couple of times when he'd done enough and earned a space for him to have a shot, or whether it's to find space for other people. It's that little crackle, that little, the sound of seats going up when he's on the ball. He's petrifying to play against for defenders. I just don't think we've had anyone like him for a while. And we saw it to a degree when he signed last year, but it felt like there was less end product. It felt like he was less in control of it. I think now, potentially, I don't know how quickly this can happen, but the confidence that he must have got from playing in the Euros against proper teams, that feeling of representing your country on the top stage and realising you can do it. I think he's electric, and I think we've just got to keep him. We've just got to keep him, and I think it needs to focus the mind on getting the absolute top dollar we can for Yasser Asprilla. I mean, if we're talking about getting 25 million quid for him, it feels like we got done on João Pedro. So we've just got to eke all the money out of everyone we possibly can. I think Imran Louza is probably one. I don't think he fancies the Championship. I don't think the Championship probably fancies him. So there's probably going to be, he's probably going to exit stage left as well. I would have thought. But, can we get 4 or 5 million quid for him? But whatever it takes, I'm glad Watford are back. I'm glad football's back. And I'm delighted for Tom Cleverley. I'm absolutely thrilled for him, because we've talked about how the negativity that pervades, certainly amongst supporters over the summer, and I'm sure some of that seeps through to the staff and the players. I'm sure it does. There's been stuff happening at the club, it feels like, that means the place hasn't been as as on an upward curve as we'd hope. But I think one thing that all Watford supporters can agree on is that we're desperate for Tom to do well, desperate for him to be supported. And to hear the crowd singing his name yesterday as one, after a really exciting, hard-fought away win in the sunshine was a beautiful moment. So it's really, really pleased for Tom Cleverley.
From the Rookery End, a podcast about life following Watford FC.
The club have started this season, they've started one this week, do like a fans media press conference. I don't know exactly what we're calling it, but that's what it feels like a little bit at the moment, where guys like us and other podcasts and YouTube channels and different social medias can have a bit of time with a player or a person from the club. And this week's Tom Bashiru. We haven't had a chance to speak to all of the people, so we're just going to play the clips of the questions that Mike asked. So here's a little bit of here's what Mike asked Tom Bashiru in this week's fan press conference.
Tom, you gave us one of the photos of the summer when you signed that new contract. You look absolutely delighted. So cheers for that. Watford are going into this season probably with less expectation than in previous seasons. For you personally, I don't know if you've picked up on that, but for you personally and the squad, does that give you more impetus to go out and prove people potentially wrong, or does it free you up? How do you respond to that?
We know there's a lot of outside noise, but it's very important for us to just focus on what we can control on the pitch. Obviously, try and bring the best version of ourselves to each game, to each training session, and just take each game as it comes. Is there part of you that wants to prove people wrong? Yeah, I mean, you could say that, but I don't think we should look too much into it. I think we just need to just do what we're capable of doing. I think there's a good belief amongst the group. We know we could compete with any team in this league, and I think we just need to show that each game. You mentioned your contract extension, Tom. What went through your mind when weighing up whether to sign or not? We know a couple of people haven't. How do you come to that decision? Do you talk to your colleagues? What's the sort of thought process? For me personally, I always wanted to stay. I think that was very clear from my side of things, but I just left it behind the scene things for my agent to deal with. Obviously, that's stuff that I don't really try and get involved in. I just try and focus on what I can do on the pitch. And for me, Clev's coming in halfway through last season, and he put a lot of confidence in me. And I just felt like I would like to carry on with that. So that's why I wanted to stay. You didn't have it written into your contract that you won't play it right back?
You did a good job, by the way. I thought you were excellent.
Yeah, that was tough.
Just seen the squad numbers, Tom. You're number 24. You happy with that? Do you have any say in that? Is there a bit of a bun fight amongst the players as to who gets what?
To be honest, I'm not really too sure. I think I'll just stay with 24. I'm happy with that number for now.
Mike, we talked about in terms of his performance yesterday. He grew into the game. A classic young footballer there in terms of his the way he speaks.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, it's important to mention that this new initiative is obviously something from the football club designed to give fan media, which I don't really like that term, but podcasts and YouTube channels and fanzines and all the rest of it, give them as a little insight into what's going on at the club by talking to players. I think it'll be staff in the future as well, and I think it's not limited to us, or if there are other outlets out there that feel like they want to be a part of it, then they get in contact with the club and let them know. And I think the club are viewing fans' media and fans' output as being integral to the whole communications landscape, really. I think there's other big clubs that are doing it more and more. So I think it's a welcome step in that regard, and it'd be interesting to see how it pans out, and hopefully supporters and can get something out of it. So welcome in that regard, and it was really pleasant. It was very, very short, very, very sweet. Everyone got a chance. Everyone who was on the Zoom call, it wasn't in person, got a chance to ask 2 or 3 questions. So there was nothing was off limits. So it was very laid back, very casual, very. It's an enjoyable way to spend 20 minutes or so, and that was largely down to the fact that Tom Dele-Bashiru was on good form. Answered all the questions in a thoughtful and enjoyable way. A little bit of humour in there, which was good. And so yeah, I mean, what you'll always get with football players these days is stock answers. They're media trained. Are they media? I assume everyone says they're media trained.
They have discussions.
Are they media trained? I don't know. But they know where's safe ground, don't they? And they know how to answer particular questions. And obviously, you're gonna get a bit of that. But it comes down to the question. And I thought the one thing that was interesting in one of the questions I asked, it's sort of a bit of a throwaway comment about his contract. And when I mentioned about him smiling in the photo, by the way, he did laugh at that. He did see the funny side of that. By the way, he wasn't cross with me. But when we mentioned him playing right back, and I'd asked him in his contract whether he had it written into his contract that he didn't want to play right back again, he did sort of say just at the end there, yeah, that was tough. And so I thought that was just interesting, just a little insight into what was going through his mind when he was asked to fill in there last year. But I thought he did a reasonable job there under tricky circumstances. But yeah, he's obviously focused, and I think you just get the general sense that he knows that this is a season he has to kick on. I think he's aware that part of that is down to staying fit. He's had some bad injuries which have set him back, and Pete from Do Not Scratch Your Eyes asked about that, actually, about coming back from a serious injury, and he really engaged with that because it was obviously something that meant a lot to him. And I think it's easy to underestimate as supporters how tough it is to come back from an injury like that. You know, I as everyone listens to this podcast will know, they know what I'm about to say. I snapped my Achilles, what was it, 5 years ago, and it still plays on my mind. Largely because I'm carrying around about 6 stone too much, and there's no way that legs like mine should be having to carry around what's above my waistline. But it does play on your mind. So to come back and to then play high impact, high level professional sport, especially in midfield where you've got to be explosive and tough, we underestimate that. So yeah, some really interesting answers from Tom Dele-Bashiru, and it's it's not a groundbreaking sort of initiative, but a really nice one. And I think just an opportunity for people to hear from the horse's mouth, if you like. I don't think it'll be a player every week; could be a staff member. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out over the year. But good to have a few minutes with Tom Dele-Bashiru there.
Another Hornet Heaven, a new series has started, and as Ollie always does, he does pick on something a bit topical every so often. And this first clip here from the first episode, a shorts story.
In eternal sunshine, he walks up Yellow Brick Road, formerly known as Occupation Road. He notices a crowd outside the windows of the Hornets shop. The new season's kit is on display and people are arguing. He goes over and listens in. He hears that the arguments aren't about the new shirt. Everyone seems happy with the shirt. The arguments are about the new shorts. He tunes into a particularly animated discussion. It's between the man who founded Watford Football Club in 1881 and Hornet Heaven's head of programmes. Shorts matter, Bill. Recently, our players haven't seemed to want to play for the shirt. Now, though, they can play for the shorts. That's not a thing, Henry. Yes, it is. The players will be inspired. Red is passion. Red is desire. Red is lust. The way you go on about it, Henry, red is obviously a perversion. Our club's established colour is black. Listen to me, Bill, old goat. I founded this club and I say our shorts should be red. Shorts must be black. Red, black. Red, red, red. Black, black, black. He tunes out again. He doesn't like it when Watford fans take sides against each other, especially on a topic that's so subjective. Arguing benefits no one. He leaves the crowd. Personally, he's pleased to see the return of red shorts, but it isn't because he prefers the colour. He likes both red and black equally. The reason he's pleased is that, for him, seeing Watford in red shorts has a deeper meaning. So he crosses Vicarage Road and enters the Troy Deeney atrium to spend a little time reminding himself of what he feels red shorts stand for.
Thank you very much, Adam, for your time. A good start to the season.
Yeah, actually our 5th winning opening weekend in a row. So not always a positive omen, but at least we'll be spending some time in the top 6 this season. We're 5th as we record, so maybe we should just call it quits and wait till next August. But yeah, no, really enjoyable day yesterday and the start we all wanted.
Well, we're 5th, Watford are, but you're first, Adam, in the From the Rookery End EFL fantasy something or another game. DCW's looking after it. I don't know how it works. You're currently top of that leaderboard. I
think Luke Molyneux of Doncaster came up trumps for me with 2 goals yesterday, so off to a flyer. But it sounds like a game you have to be very switched on to every week. It's an entirely new team every week, isn't it?
It's weird. Yeah, it's not the same.
Whether it's maintained throughout the season, we'll see. But off to a flying start.
It's always the key with any fantasy team. Can you maintain it throughout the season? And thank you, Michael, for your time.
Oh, an absolute pleasure. Congratulations to Adam on taking that Manager of the Week title. I mean, from the absolutely excellent analysis he's provided on From the Rookery End, not just today, but previously, it's absolutely no surprise to me that he's top of that table. Congratulations, Adam. I'm sure you'll be there for a long time to come. But brilliant day yesterday, and look, it reminds you what it's all about, doesn't it? We all do it. We all talk about our fears. We all talk about what we hope will happen. We all talk about what we're worried will happen. We talk about transfers. We talk about the state of the game. We talk about owners. We talk about everything under the sun, but often apart from the football itself. And yesterday, for a whole host of reasons, was a reminder of why we love it. And said in the last podcast, it was a very sort of, not doom and gloom, but it was quite a few people came up to me yesterday and said, "Oh, I listened to your podcast last week, Mike. I wish I hadn't." And but so the reality is, you go along, you go with your mates, you go with your family, and you want to be excited and you want to feel something. You want to be able to, well, that's it really. You want to feel something. We even embrace the despair, don't we? I mean, as the second goal went in, how many of us, the second equaliser went in, how many of us were looking to each other going, oh, well, knew that was coming, didn't we? And that's typical Watford, and sort of almost revelling in that. You want to feel something. That's what it's all about. It's that emotional connection. And it was great to have that back yesterday. Great to have that reminder as to why we're massive Watford supporters. Delighted that the result ended the way it did. Delighted for Arlo, who had the world's greatest birthday. If you are a 13-year-old lad and you could ask for a 90th minute away at Millwall winner I think you're going to be pretty happy with that. So happy birthday, Arlo. Well done, the Orns, for delivering for him. Really, really fun day. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be middling bits, but we'll be there along for the ride, and I can't wait.
Come on, you Orns!